So in today's video we're going to be covering the best weapons in Battlefield 4. And I say best weapons, I mean my personal preferences for the best weapons. I'm not going to be covering DMRs and shotguns in this video, however, so take note of that. And the reason I'm not going to be covering them is because shotguns have no stats on Simthic, and as for both of them actually, there's such a wide range of what can be used for what. There's close range DMRs, there's high rate of fire DMRs, there's long range DMRs. Same with shotguns. You've got mag fed, there's single shot reload, there's there's semi-auto. There's pump action. There's just a broad range of what you can cover. So I can't quite go into detail with these. But on screen at the minute, you have some annotations for if you want to skip to different parts of the video. There are 6 sections to this video, and the way it works is I show the weapons that I'm going to be picking. The only weapons that I don't do this for are pistols. I show the weapons that I'm going to be picking in the test range, firing at various different surfaces, just controlling the spread, going hip firing, things like that. And I then jump into a stat screen, like you will see at the end of the assault rifle clip. I jump into a stat screen and I talk about the weapons for a bit and which ones I prefer, which ones I use, and which ones are DLC based and which ones aren't. So I hope you enjoy the video. The annotations are still on screen probably, if I remember to leave them in, and feel free to skip to any part of the video, and I will see you probably sometime in a minute. So now that we've seen the 4 clips of all the assault rifles, we can finally take a look at the stats. And they are as follows. The AEK 971 900 rounds a minute, F2000 850, and M416 and L85 both on 750. Now if we look at bullet velocity, there's a pattern. The lower the rate of fire, the higher the bullet velocity gets, and so does the range. While the M416 and the F2000 share the same bullet velocity and range, the AEK is worse off at 580, meaning leading your targets at longer range is a lot harder, meaning that the L85 is the best assault rifle in this group for longer range combat. The F2000 and the M416 are both middle of the road weapons, but ignoring the damage charts because they're all exactly the same, if we look at our reloads and our magazines, they all have a magazine size of 30. And the reloads is where it all gets a bit complicated, because the AEK and the L85 share very similar reload times. Now, all the high rate of fire weapons have long reload times, but the L85 and F2000 in particular, as they are bullpup weapons. And the L85 is a particularly nasty gun to reload because the cocking handle is on the other side of the gun, to the side that you see in first person, which is why it can't be fired left-handed. So, after you put the mag in on a full reload, you then have to slap the side, I don't know what that achieves, and then flip the weapon over and pull back. But if you look at the reload on the F2000, it is disastrous. 2.7 for the tactical reload and 3.9 for the full reload. And just to put that in perspective, all but the AEK on its tactical reload, all of the tactical reloads on all of these weapons are slower than the full reload on the M416. And that's interesting. The M416 has one of the quickest reloads out of all the assault rifles. I think it's beaten by the M16A4 and maybe one other, but I can't remember. Now if we look at recoil, the AEK, as we can see, has the worst upwards recoil and left to right recoil of them all. As we can see, first shot multiplier of 2.55, which isn't bad. With an angle grip on there, you can probably take that down quite a lot, but it kicks up at 0.42 and sideways at 0.45 and 0.25, which is bad. The spray control on this thing, as I've shown, is relatively easy at close range, but it is on hell of a monster control. To control, I should say. Looking at the F2000, we've got a very similar upwards recoil, slightly less though, and a slightly less first shot recoil multiplier. And the side to side recoil is more even as well. As for the M416, we have 2.2 first shot recoil, which means you have to run an angle grip on it. You can't run the old stubby grip to improve the accuracy. We have a 0.32 up, same as the F2000, 0.12 to the left, and 0.28 to the right, which means it has a very even recoil, but not as even as the L85. The lowest first shot recoil multiplier out of the lot here, on 1.7, it has even side to side recoil, meaning that technically the gun should just, the recoil pattern of the gun should be a straight line upwards. I think that's how it works anyway. But everything else we're not going to bother looking at. But if you're wondering which one I prefer and why out of these, for a high rate of fire assault rifle, I prefer the F2000. Mainly because of the bullet velocity, but also because of the spray on it. It's a very controllable spread pattern for a high rate of fire assault rifle, and I like that. But if I had to choose a low rate of fire assault rifle, it's tied between the 416 and the L85. I like them both. At the minute I'm using the 416, but I do prefer the L85. Now, the two DLC weapons for this were the F2000 and the L85. The F2000 is a China Rising weapon, and the F2000 is a second assault weapon. The AEK and the M416 were both stock weapons. Moving on to PDWs now then, and here are my 4 picks as you've just seen in action. We have the CZ3A1, we have the ASVAL, the MPX and the P90. The ASVAL and the MPX are the 2 DLC weapons from this pack. The ASVAL is a second assault weapon, like the F2000, and the MPX is a Dragon's Teeth weapon, unlocked with a chain link assignment. I've forgotten what the ASVAL has something to do with spending time in helicopters, which is easy to get. And the 2 base weapons that I picked is the CZ3A1 and the P90. Now the P90 is the one that I'm going to focus on first for this. It's got the highest muzzle velocity, and it's got a middle of the road rate of fire. It's got a good rate of fire for a PDW actually. I mean, they're all sitting around the same sort of benchmark of 800 to up to 1000. Remember, the CZ3A1 shares its rate of fire with the fastest firing gun in the game, the FAMAS. And if we look at the P90, actually no, we can't see it from here, but not only does it have the biggest magazine and the longest reload, coincidentally, it's a campaign weapon. You can unlock it via the campaign. It's not unlocked via progression. But that magazine, and this is why, the magazine and the rate of fire is why the damage is so low. As we can see, the ASVAL has the best damage, but it drops off at just over 40 meters. It starts dropping off about 5 meters and finishes at just under 45. The rest of the PDWs start at around 10, 15-ish and finish off at about 50. Apart from the CZ3A1, which starts at 20 meters and finishes at 50. Does that make the ASVAL obsolete? Not really. The thing's still got very good damage. At long range, look at it. It's still flipping outdoing, in damage terms, every other PDW that I've picked. The thing does immense amounts of damage, as does the Groza 4. The Groza 4 is still a very good PDW. With the Groza 4, however, you're not getting the rate of fire that you are on this, and I think the reload is slightly prolonged. And this is something that I want to go into. All but the P90, all the PDWs have very fast tactical reloads, and the MPX still has a fast full reload as well. The CZ3A1 and the ASVAL both have very long full reloads. In fact, in the case of the CZ3A1, it's over a second longer than its tactical reload, and that is a nightmare in a combat situation, because you really, even if you leave one bullet in the chamber, just reload. There's nothing else you can do. As for ranges, we're not going to focus on those because we don't need them. Magazine size is pretty self-explanatory. Recoil patterns, as we can see, CZ3A1's the worst, surprise surprise. P90 has got the best and is the most the MPX and the P90 both have very good recoil patterns, but king of first shot recoil is the CZ3A1. They're clocking in at 3 times, which is immense, and the P90 with the lowest at 2. Which one do I prefer using? At the minute I'm using the MPX, but I'm literally just sitting here thinking, or should I use the ASVAL? It's got pretty good performance. Because suppressors take away damage, so I am vastly reconsidering whether I keep using PDWs or not. So, moving on to the LMG section of the video now, where I'm going to focus on 4 LMGs, and the way this one's going to work, same way with 2 DLC and 2 magfed. No, 2 DLC and 2 normal, but we're going to, for each of the DLC and the normal, so I will have 1 DLC magfed rifle, assault LMG, and I will have 1 DLC belt-fed LMG, and the same for the stock game as well, so I'll see you in a minute. Moving on to LMGs now, and you've already seen my 4 picks, but here they are again. And I'm going to go over the DLC weapons first. We have the RPK-74M and the M60E4. The RPK from the China Rising pack and the M60E4 from the Second Assault pack. I kind of like Second Assault. Can you tell? I think it's one of my favourite packs. But once again, they're arranged in order of rate of fire, and you can get LMGs with rate of fires of 800, and in fact the M249 very nearly made it onto this list. But I chose the Type 88 for a very special reason, and that is the fact that I like to refer to this as a sniper of an LMG. Now, although it hasn't got a low first shot recoil multiplier, and it has got the second longest reload out of all the LMGs here, only beaten by the M60E4 by a couple of seconds, this weapon is fantastic. 670 meters a second muzzle velocity. It ties with the JNG 90, and the CSLR4, which have got the highest muzzle velocity in the game. It's got over 1,000 meters in range, and for an LMG that's brilliant. And 700 rounds a minute, so it's a steady, controllable rate of fire. Now, we look at it, the magazine size. It's also one of the only LMGs to have that 200 round box mag. I think only 3 LMGs have it, and it is, well, very useful. I know you've only got one in reserve, but having a 200 round box mag just means you can set up a bipod and just keep firing. But I prefer to run the gun with a stubby grip or an angled grip, depends what I'm feeling like, and just go run and gun with it. It's not got the highest damage model. I think it's at the lower end for damage models. As you can see, the RPK has a decent damage model. It's a fairly unique one. 20 at the minimum damage, so the minimum amount of time for this thing to kill, I think it's a 5-shot kill. And the M60 is a 5-shot kill as well. The Type 88 and the LX6 are both 6-shot kills. Looking at the M60 though, this thing has an abnormally low rate of fire. It has the lowest rate of fire out of any LMG in the game. The U100, I think, beats it, the Mark V. The stock LMG beats it by, I think, 20 rounds a minute, which really isn't a lot. It is horrifically slow, but that means the thing is incredibly precise. And look at that first shot recoil multiplier. 1. There is no first shot recoil. It builds up as you go, basically. And as you saw in that little clip where I did the little test to just like the long range firing, it is basically a sniper. You can tap fire that thing at a reasonable rate and land quite a lot of hits. And if you slowed it down, you could probably land all of your bullets in the same place. So which one do I prefer out of these? Well, I prefer the Type 88. It's my current LMG. I don't really like using the 2 DLC ones anymore, but in a break from the L86, I'm currently using the Type 88, and it is working very well. Now, something I forgot to mention about the L86A1, despite the fact that it's labelled as A2 on Battlelog, it is the bigger brother of the L85, the assault rifle. Even though it lacks in rate of fire, you can run the same setup that you would do on the L85, which is what I've done. The heavy barrel and stubby grip combo work perfectly on this weapon, and I would highly recommend using that combo to get the most out of it. So the next section is going to be on sniper rifles, and then we're going to take a look at carbines, and I will call it a day after that, because I can't talk about pistols. Or no, I can talk about pistols, and I will, but I can't talk about shotguns, and I refuse to talk about DMRs because they're useless. So I will see you in a minute. So now we're taking a look at sniper rifles, and the first thing that people are going to see on that list is the CSLR-4, the stock sniper rifle. Bigger brother of the FYJS, which is complete and utter crap, to be honest. That lower damage model makes it useless unless you're firing people at close range. Now, you probably noticed that all of the sniper rifles, apart from the CSLR-4, have a very long damage drop-off on them. The CSLR-4 has a very short damage drop-off range, but that's okay, because the damage drops off at somewhere around in the region of 100 meters, and that's fine. That really doesn't matter, because this weapon is only supposed to be used at close range. The scope that you get on it, a 6x scope, is, you know, quite frankly, it's for close range. I mean, if you've seen my BF4 funny trick shot video, like whatever it was, I was on Caspian, I was heading towards the Russian spawn, and I sniped 2 guys off the tower from about 400 meters. We're using a 4x scope. Those shots had to be headshots. All snipers at that range would have only done 59 damage, but this does mean that at medium range combat, the CSLR-4 lacks a bit. It doesn't have the stopping power that the other sniper rifles have, but it shares its stats with the JNG-90. Apart from the rate of fire and the magazine size, the JNG-90 has a rate of fire of 37 rounds a minute and a magazine size of 10, 11 if there's one in the chamber. The CSLR-4 trades off magazine size for a slightly faster rate of fire, and the reload speed on it isn't all that bad either. It's got the fastest reload out of all the snipers. Moving on, L96A1. 43 rounds a minute, 630 meters a second of muzzle velocity, and the longer damage drop-off makes it an ideal sniper for medium range. Now I'm going to skip the SRR-61 because I'm going to come back to that one in a minute, but the Gold Magnum now. The Gold Magnum is my preferred sniper of choice, and I only like close range sniping. As you saw, this is the only set of weapons I've done a test on where all the modifications have not changed how the weapons perform. And the reason for that is I wanted to give them a fair test. The weapons that I was running in the earlier tests, things like the AEK, I was running with my preferred setups. I mean, the AS Val I love, but I don't use it enough to unlock all the mods on it. So I've only got about 30 kills on it, which means I haven't got any mods whatsoever on it. So I've had to leave it out. But the Gold Magnum is my preferred sniper of choice, and it is hard to unlock. I'll grant you that, but once it's unlocked, it's sort of middle of the road sniper. It can be used for long range, it can be used for close range. It's a good gun, and I was a bit sceptical about using it at first, looking at the stats, and after using it for quite a while now, I have sort of realised that it is probably my favourite sniper rifle in the game now. It used to be the L96. I think I've still got the most kills on that one, but the Gold Magnum is very quickly catching up. But for a long-range sniper rifle, what about the SRR-61? Well, it is my preferred long-range sniper rifle. A lot of people would go over towards the M98B or something else, but the SRR-61 is my preferred rifle of choice because of its bullet drop. All the weapons here have a 9.81 meters a second squared bullet drop, and I think that means for every 9.81 meters it covers, I think it drops 1 meter or something like that. Or no, actually no, ignore that. It's actually just the rate at which the bullet falls at. It's the acceleration rate of the fall, I think, something like that. I don't know. But it has 6 compared to the 9.81, which means that when aiming, it's a lot easier to put on target. Now, granted, it hasn't got the best rate of fire, but that makes it perfect for longer range shots, because you're not going to be taking quick follow-up shots. If you're going long range, you're going to have a very high magnification scope, and you're going to be running a bipod, because it's going to give you that stability so you don't have to hold your breath when sniping. So, for our last one of our last commented sections, we're going to go on to carbines, and then I will finish up with pistols, and I will end the video there. So, I'll see you in a minute. So, the penultimate section of the video now, and we are looking at 3 of my favourite carbines. The ACWR, the AK5C and the ACE21 CQB. Now, I'll look at from the bottom to the top. This section of the video and the handgun section is going to be done differently. We're not looking at DLC weapons and stock weapons, and I forgot to mention the sniper rifles. The L96 and the Gold Magnum were the 2 DLC weapons. The L96 was China Rising, and the Gold Magnum was a second assault. Moving on though, none of these weapons are DLC, they're all part of the stock game. As we see right in the middle, there is the old faithful AK5C. The AK5C is the first carbine to be unlocked, and has a rate of fire of 700 rounds a minute, a bullet velocity of 620 meters a second, and all the other usual features. It's got the longest range out of all the carbines, but something I want to touch on briefly, the majority of the carbines share the same damage model. 24 damage until around 10 meters, and then they drop off to 15.4 at 50 meters. So they've all got the same magazine size apart from the ACE21, which, like its bigger brother, the ACE23, the assault rifle that I haven't featured because I don't like it, has a 36 round magazine and has the slowest reload time because of that. It's got the lowest muzzle velocity, but the second highest flipping rate of fire, which is strange because you don't really think of the AK. I don't really think of the Ace as being a particularly fast firing weapon. I think it's pretty sluggish, and that's one of the things I like about it. It is controllable. Now, I'm not going to touch on recoil because, as we can see, the ACWR is just mental. The ACWR also has the fastest reload, which is pretty interesting. But we have first shot recoil multipliers. The ACWR has the worst, which is why I run it with angled grip. The AK5C has the best, 1.65, and the ACE21 somewhere in the middle of the road with 2.25. And that's the way I'd like to describe the ACE21 overall. It is a middle of the road carbine. You can do what you want with it. The AK5C is limited to medium range. It can be used in close range, but I'd say it's limited to medium range. The ACWR, on the other hand, is a very close to medium range combat carbine. The thing will shred people at medium range on Noshar canals and maps like that. You know, the thing, quite frankly, is a monster. The ACE21, it can handle people at close range, it can handle people at medium range, and even if you wanted to, I'm sure you could probably take down people at 100 meters plus. But bear in mind, you're going to be leading your target quite a long way due to that muzzle velocity. So we have one more section of the video to cover now, and that is handguns, and I'm going to include handguns in the same narration. And the 3 handguns that I've chosen are the Deagle 44, the FN57 and the Glock 18. Now, the Deagle has the highest damage model, as we can see, 56 damage until I'd say that's about 17 meters before it drops off to 28 at 50 meters. This still means it is a 4-shot kill, but those 4 shots are incredibly hard to get in quick succession because the Deagle, if we look at the recoil, as we can see, has not 0.2 but 2 as its upward recoil, which is mental in my opinion. It also has the longest reload. The Glock 18 has the shortest reload, shortest tactical reload, whilst the 5.7 has the quickest normal reload. The Deagle also has its rate of fire limited to 220, the 5.7 on 455, and the Glock 18 on full auto at 900 rounds a minute. The Deagle and the 5.7 are both semi-auto, whilst the Glock is full auto. And what the Glock gains in rate of fire, as you can see, it loses in recoil and first shot recoil multiplier, because it has very, very, very bad side-to-side and upwards recoil. Not as bad as the Deagle and the 5.7 for upwards, but its first shot recoil multiplier is 2. And on pistols, there's no way you can dampen first shot recoil, so you are stuck with it. Damage model is also slightly different on the Glock. It has a slightly lower damage than the 5.7 at its drop-off, and the 5.7's damage drops off later on. Pistols aren't meant to be used at long range, but if you were planning, I'd take the 5.7. The Deagle isn't that isn't a sniper pistol. If you want a sniper though, if you want a pistol to snipe with even, take the 1911 or the Magnum. They are quite simply, well no, they just have 3 times scopes on them. You just use those. If you want to be annoying and go snipe with a pistol somewhere and probably miss all your shots, feel free. The Magnum and the 1911 are yours, but out of all of these pistols, which one would I choose? Well, I use all of them. I use the Deagle on my support, the F57 on my engineer, and the Glock on my assault. And one that I couldn't get the stats for, my pistol for recon is the Shorty 12G. However, I sometimes use the Glock. The reason I use the Shorty is because of the fact that it's pretty much a one-shot kill at close range, and that's what I love about it. Even though it has got a lengthy reload, I think it's like a 4 or 5 second reload, what it loses in reload speed, it makes up for in just brute strength. But that brings us to the end of this video, and I hope this has sort of been an insight into what weapons I prefer in Battlefield 1 and the stats of some of these weapons, and what weapons maybe you should be using in not Battlefield. I said Battlefield 1, didn't I? I meant Battlefield 4. But I will probably not be making any more videos of this type between now and when Battlefield 1 is released. When BF1 is released, I will probably do some short weapon reviews. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ra.